It's just hard for me. I'm never quite sure to think of Behemoth of good or bad. What impression do you get? Do you get that it's kind of a
Oh, it's like morally neutral.
neutral? Same thing with Leviathan in a way.
Yeah. Well, and even God in Job, God is bragging about it.
Hmm.
So Behemoth is the first among his great works, and Leviathan is I forget what he says, but God's bragging about his creation
Yeah.
in
So
that,
this is
and then in Revelation, both the beasts are clearly just evil.
just kind of like a type of Behemoth gone wrong or something.
All right, welcome everyone. It's Jess and Jason here.
Oh,
So we're gonna talk about Behemoth and then probably Leviathan as well. And you had sort of brought it up to me because you were reading some stuff. So there was like the Jewish fairy tale that I listened to, the one about was it Sinbad?
yeah.
And then you also
Almost.
brought up the beginning part of Leviticus, which was interesting. Um, I I was looking back through the book of Revelation and then also the end of Job. Um, and I don't know where should we start with any of this?
Um, yeah, I don't know. If we start with Behemoth, I guess we could try to start around that. The first time, the first time I ever noticed Behemoth was in the book of Job, of course. But then there's actually in Genesis, um, it's the word Behemah, which for some reason, my translates that as cattle. I think it's created on the fifth day. And said, then
Yeah.
God said, let the earth bring forth a living creature according to its kind, the cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth according to its kind. Um, yeah, so that word cattle, just kind of like a collective. I don't know what would you take that as? A collective body of like domesticated animals or something? Or
Yeah, well, Behema just means beasts in general. Like it's just sort of like beasts are the closest word. It's just beasts of land, like land
land
animals.
beast? Okay, I
Yeah, it
didn't know
would.
if there was a specific distinction between like a wild beast or these or this kind of.
I don't think so.
Okay,
And then in Job when it says behemoth, Job is the only place behemoth is used.
okay,
Now, and it seems to be like a name that's based on the you know behema or however you say it, which is just a generic term for beasts. So it's like the beast,
okay.
it's like the proper, but he's only talked about in Job. Like he like compare that to Leviathan, which is mentioned right after that in Job, but Leviathan's also mentioned in Isaiah and the Psalms, and you could see him other places as well, talking about the sea monster. Um, but
Okay.
then like Behemoth, yeah. So anyway, go ahead. So it's mentioned first in Genesis with reference to just the cattle, just
Hmm.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. So that, and then I guess that's kind of playing on that word, or they're at least connected, in their etymology or something. It seemed like, and then what I had brought up to you was I was just reading Leviticus, is it like just kicks off and it's verse, gosh, what is it? Verse two. It says, and here my version says the livestock, but that word livestock is also behemoth. Um, so I didn't know if there was something going on there as well, because you had mentioned, um, you had brought up how there's scriptures that God says he's going to slay Leviathan and then give him as a feast to his people. And then it seems like in Leviticus, with all these sacrifices, all the sacrifices are coming from
right.
that word, behemah. So it's kind of like there's feasting on both or something. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting. Well,
I, wa- I
I
wasn't
never
sure what
thought
to do
about
with
that.
that.
There's no like sacrifices where you bring up fish
Yeah,
or
yeah,
some sort of sea creature.
that's true. I didn't think about that either. Because fish are clean, some of them. I mean, it says you can eat them, but they don't.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a bird. Sometimes you bring the birds, but the birds
Right.
are still, I think, of the flock. And I wonder. I don't know if that's included because it says you shall bring of your offering of the livestock. And that word livestock is Behemoth, and then it's got a little hyphen, and it says of the herd and of the flock. Like it's describing that even further. So I don't know if I don't know why the clean birds would be included in that. That wouldn't make sense to me if I'm going from Genesis. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that is. I never thought about that before either. There's no fish or any of that stuff. Hmm.
Yeah, but there is the skin on the outside of the tabernacle, which seems to come from some sort of unknown sea creature.
Where is
The
that?
outermost layer of the tabernacle.
Is that So I heard you had mentioned that, and I think Jacob and Sherry were all like privy to that idea. I had never heard that idea before. Where does that come
Let me
from?
see if
Because
I can
my
find it.
in Exodus, mine always says like badger skin or something weird like that. But I think it is something weird where like when I look up, if I remember right, when I look up the word, it says it's an unknown creature. Its identity is unknown. But I don't know why New King James would translate it badger skin. Let me see.
Well, I can't find the exact verse, but it's one of those things where like even the word is really rare and it obscure. And so it's really
Okay.
hard to translate. And so I've even seen places where it's translated like sea cow skin or like
That's
manatee skin or something like that, or whale skin. But then there's all this tradition in the Jewish mythology about um, the slaying of Leviathan, and then like them like feasting on its meat, and then like living within, like making tents out of it. It's either like multiple tents or it's like one giant tent that the whole world like lives under or something like that. um
super interesting.
yeah, but it's interesting that but Pajot talks about it. So there's like multiple layers to the top of the tabernacle, and it starts
Okay.
out with like I can't remember, and I don't know where the verse is, but it's something like, first is like wool, and then it's like um it's another material and then it gets like the materials get more and more rare as it goes
Okay.
out, until the outermost layer is like this word that no one knows what it is, and it like refers to some sort of sea creature. And so it's like as you move from the 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 lower layer to the outermost layer, you go from what's most familiar to
Strange.
most strange. Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow. That's
But
super interesting. I had never heard any of that before. Wow.
and I well and like basically everything I'll say in this conversation is like I could be wrong.
Well, that's fine.
We'll just add
I'm
that
just
disclaimer
I'm curious
across
about
everything.
the idea behind it. So the idea is kind of like the redemption of the strange or something, or the of the chaos even. The creature of
Well,
chaos is what's the implication with the living inside its skin?
yeah, well, it's something like the conquering of Leviathan, because Leviathan represents the chaotic. And so like to have the chaotic, and it's like chaos as such, like the category of the unknown, to have
Hmm.
the unknown completely conquered and then to live inside of it and then to feast on it. Well, that's a powerful metaphor of like
Yeah.
you've basically destroyed death and fear and everything, like
Yeah.
it no longer exists
Yeah.
as a thing.
That makes sense. You're right. It is a powerful metaphor. It seems like the ambiguity of it or something makes it a little more, or it needs to kind of remain a little bit mysterious. My mind kind of went where you just said the fear is dead, because it kind of makes me think like of you get to this point in life or humanity gets to this point where the fear that lives within the chaos or what lives within the
Mm,
waters is devoured. Like we just consume it. We eat it up. It becomes our bread, so to say.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. That's really
Yeah.
powerful.
And I mean, like this gets to Jordan Peterson's thing about being on the line between order and chaos, like just enough so that you're into the unknown and you're exhilarated by kind of like the new exploration or discoveries that you can make, as well as like having one foot in order where you're like have some stability and some place that you feel secure. So you're not totally in chaos where like everything's just, you're just floating around and being tossed by waves. So you have one foot that's secure and one that's out taking a step in a new direction, so that and to think about that in terms of like that's how people are. And well, he says that that's where you sense the most meaning is when
Hmm.
you strike that right balance for yourself. And some people are more temperamental to be a little bit more chaotic, and some people are temperamental to be a little bit more secure. But whatever that is for you, you'll find the most meaning. And then in that place, like you can just take off, we say it like biting off enough that don't bite off more than you can chew. It's
Yeah,
this idea that you could be eating chaos and like
that's cool.
integrating it into yourself or something like.
That's really cool. I like that saying. Yeah, it made me think of that when you were talking. It made me think of that verse in Revelation. I'm sure you're familiar with it too. The angel where you're talking about standing with one foot in the sea and one foot on the land, one foot in
Yeah.
chaos, one foot in order. It says, um, gosh, where is it?
Well, to get back to Behemoth before we just go
Yeah.
full
Okay.
Leviathan,
Yeah. All
um,
right.
like in Revelation, okay, so in Job, Behemoth is the creature on the land, like has like bones made of bronze and iron, um, that he like can wade into the river and the river doesn't phase him. Um, he but he's like docile. He like eats the grass of the field and lives in the forest, and um very much is sort of like a creature of the land. But even in that metaphor of saying that he has, well, and then it also talks about his loins and sort of his reproductive power, the strength that is in his belly and in his like it uses the terms belly and loins, but it's really talking about his reproductive power. So there's this strength that he has in his ability to um continue offspring. And then with the bones of iron and bronze, it seems like there's a tie that Behemoth also represents like civilization. And and so with man's ability to use iron and bronze also came this ability to construct buildings and tools and stuff that enable like civilizations to start thriving. Even modern historians and archaeologists, they categorize it by like Bronze Age, the Iron Age, like as technology advances, also our civilizations sort of form around those technologies. And so Behemoth in Job kind of takes on some of those qualities. So there's something like the ordered world that technology enables is also like, I don't know, but it takes on a beastly character to it. Like civilizations are like, they have their own character. They're kind of like a big animal that lumbers through the scene, and it's born and then it lives and then it dies. And but then other civilizations are born and they live and they die, and they're these big massive things that sort of rumble through the earth, that we're all kind of part of. And that's the kind of sense I get from Behemoth and Job. So, but it's also talking about animals as such in a way also, because animals, in the way that animals are, living creatures, are ordered beings that, if we're talking about evolutionarily, like that rise up out of the earth that have life, that have a reproductive power that enables the species to continue even though the individuals die. And to talk about life as such is sort of fits in there as well. And so there's this sort of it's like the beast of the land, the beast of order. And that's definitely it's definitely compared to the Leviathan, which is like the beast of chaos. It lives in a place that we can't live in. It makes its home in the depths where we don't know where it is. It's Leviathan means twisting, coiled serpent, and so it has this turning and twisting, and like Behemoth is like solid and like lumbers through things, where Leviathan's turning and thrashing and all this stuff, and so the chaotic element compared, so you have the beast of chaos and the beast of order in a way, and you even get that into Revelation. Maybe let me just read a little bit of I'll just read a little bit out of Revelation 13. So it's the first beast, which this is 13:1. It says, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and a blasphemous name on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and the throne and great authority." All right, so that's the first beast that comes out of the sea. And then there's this second beast. Then I saw another beast. This is verse 11. "Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all authority of the first beast in its presence, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performed great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceived those who dwelled on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived." So that's the beast that rises out of the sea and the beast that rises out of the earth.
It's really interesting. So you're likening that beast there, you're connecting to the idea of the behemoth.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
but the imagery is
Yeah, they were.
quite a bit different, but it's still like the major connector is the land and the sea. That's the one connection point between those two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something there for sure. It's just hard for me. I'm never quite sure to think of behemoth of good or bad. What impression do you get? Do you get that it's kind of
Oh, it's like morally neutral.
neutral? Same thing with Leviathan in a way.
Yeah. Well, and even God in Job, God is bragging about it.
Mm-hmm.
So Behemoth is the first among his great works, and Leviathan is I forget what he says, but God's bragging about his creation
Yeah.
in
So
that,
this is
and then in Revelation, both the beasts are clearly just evil.
just kind of like a type of behemoth gone wrong or something. Yeah,
Yeah, but
in a way.
yeah, then this gets to what Sherry and Nate in Grail Country was talking about in that book, uh, Revelation of St. John, I think, where then the angel straddles the sea and the land, and
Yeah.
the idea of like harnessing both of them. So it's not the destruction of both of them that brings peace. It's the harnessing of both of them by the angel or something like that.
Yeah, it was
They were
interesting. That's
talking
what
about.
I saw still another mighty angel, which is interesting. It says mighty, coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. He had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. That's interesting. I don't know what to make of that.
Where's that one at?
This is Revelation 10. So he puts his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. It's
Right.
interesting too that like I like the imagery of his head. Like his head is in the proper place. It's in the heavens with the rainbow
Hmm.
around it, like the throne of God. Like it's because the rainbow's around the throne of God, and there's a rainbow on his head. Um, and his face is like the sun, which kind of happens like Moses' face when he's dwelling in the presence of God. And his feet are like pillars of fire. I don't know. There's just like so much that is described in the angel that I kind of wonder if I mean I would assume it's significant to how he's able to stand on both the sea and the land, but I don't
I
know.
know, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Right foot on the sea, left foot on the thing. Hmm. Then his voice when he speaks, seven thunders utter the voice. Yeah, it's really interesting. I was gonna ask too with the behemoth, there's it's a beast, right? I mean, it's not a man. So I kind of wonder about that too, because it would make me, when you're talking, it kind of made me think of Nebuchadnezzar in a way too. Like he gets changed into a beast. Like God tells
Right,
him
right.
he's a king and he says, you're going to be given the heart of a beast and you're going to roam
Hmm.
almost like a wild behemoth creature or something like,
Right.
yeah. So I wonder if this angel is kind of, hmm, where Nebuchadnezzar resembled a beast, this angel resembles a man or an angel, I guess you could say. And, and I don't know. I don't know if there's something there. I don't even really necessarily know what I'm getting at, but
Yeah, I don't know. Because they're like, didn't Nebuchadnezzar also have that dream of this huge statue with the head of gold and the shoulders of silver and then
yeah,
the torso
almost
of
kind of like
bronze?
this
And
angel. Yeah, almost kind of like the angel. And
yeah.
but then when he establishes that, that's when he ends up falling, and he turns into this beast. It kind of reminds me like
Hmm.
when Luke Thompson will say like Christ and Antichrist are a hair's breadth away. So like when you finally reach the throne of God, it's like you could easily slip into exalting yourself, and then when you do that,
Hmm.
you fall or something. Yeah, because I think it's
Yeah.
right after that he does that whole thing, and then he says, "Look at this kingdom I've created," and then that's when the judgment's pronounced on him. Now you're going to be a beastly creature.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is fascinating. There's because even in Daniel, I feel like there's imagery there too. Because even when you were talking, I don't know. I almost brought this up. I was just to kind of help maybe clarify, like with I guess different ways to view things when you were talking about the beast coming up out of the earth and out of the sea, and it says so he told me, I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this, and he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these. Those great beasts, which are four kings which arise out of the earth. Um, so the reason I'm saying that is just like because he's saying the beasts are almost like kings, and then it says got a
Right.
note and it says kingdoms. So you could see them like you're talking about like the beasts are actually kingdoms or cities or bodies or nations, even
Hmm.
just different ways of seeing it. And it says yeah, I don't know. It's just, and then the horns, I think it says the horns are like kings too. So when you get this image in the spiritual realm of like this beast with horns or something, the horns could sometimes be seen as like crowns. So like
Right.
numbers of crowns or something like that. I don't know. It's hard for me to, to keep all that in my mind because it's so contrary to how I used to view things too. And in
Right.
symbolic imagery, it's not like my immediate
Well, it's
go-to.
interesting how
So
often, like I didn't even think about Daniel, but that the comparing of all the civilizations to different beasts, and that's clearly what's happening in Revelation too. The comparison of, saying that it was like a leopard, feet were like a bear, but this is the one that came out of the sea. It's interesting that it comes out of the sea, but then it has an appearance of an animal that would be on land.
yeah, that is. It's like, yeah.
But then there's this, what it Revelation also has the dragon in it.
Oh no.
So one thing that's coming to mind is that like people like there's a way in which our bodies are like the beast of the land, and then our emotion or passions are the beast of the sea. So like I've heard it
That's
talk about
interesting.
like um our, if like our emotional or our passions, our desires, the things that stir up inside of us that left unbridled, we'll say, will become like Leviathan, destructive, devouring, chaotic. And you can even see that people that give into like maybe even hedonism or something like that, their life doesn't get more structured and ordered. It flies apart dramatically, in different ways. Then the our bodies are like the beasts of the land, which require certain things. It requires, you know, food, exercise, water, shelter, and then if you're doing everything, you could see how civilization is basically like even just those basic bodily needs, like it accounts for our sewer system and water systems and housing and air conditioning and electricity and all this stuff that we build up, and that's kind of like for our bodies. And then um but we have like um bodily desires, and then we also have our passions or something like that that can kind of um consume us in different ways. So we can be so concerned about preserving ourselves and protecting ourselves that we build too much structure, we build too much stuff around us. We can also go the other direction where we give over too much to our passions, where we do whatever we want, and then it kind of flies apart. So, but the thing is not to kill either one of those, obviously, because you can't like it.
Yeah.
Either one will lead to a death, your own death. And so like part of that is you have to bridle both of them, like that angel that stands with his leg on the land and the ocean. So within you have the water or the chaotic things and the ordered things, and you got to stand there and you have to use those energies, because you can't force them to do anything. So you have to bridle them and then drive them towards something. So like I think like that's
Super
what
interesting.
Christian practices do. So like prayer, fasting, um uh charity, um worship, like it's all about directing those things, not letting them.
This is super interesting. I'm not sure what to um 'cause I'm trying to, I don't know why my mind's like trying to categorize things. I don't know if it should be doing that right now. But
Yeah,
if
that's what
like
I'm doing.
yeah. So it's like, but I was thinking like if Behemoth is kind of like your body, you get kind of this idea of a land creature, so there's stability there. So it's making me think of just like even with eating food, like you eat your bread, you eat meat, it's like it keeps you present here, more of the body, it keeps you in your body in a way. So I was thinking like you said Leviathan was kind of like emotions, and I was thinking even in like the spirit realm, or it's kind of chaotic. Things are a little bit different. But then you mentioned fasting, and I was like, well, that's strange because it's like you're giving up this material, something that I would almost find like almost something stabilizing. Like one night you eat food, you eat communion, you're with people, you're present. It's like things feel more, at least for me, they feel more in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, stable. But then in fasting, you're giving that up to somehow harness this chaos. Like you're kind of like going into the waters, but then with the in order to harness the Leviathan in a way or something, or
Right.
you have to take control of your passions.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's weird. I hadn't really, I'm not sure what to do with that. Uh,
Well, I think it has something to do with like it helps control. Well, it helps you focus on a higher thing or put that higher thing in control. So you're like, all right, we're not going to listen to you guys at all for a bit.
ah,
It'll be just for a time. It won't be for forever.
yeah,
And we're going to focus on whatever. We're going to
it
focus
makes
on
me,
prayer instead of, because I don't think you can necessarily just divide things up super easily into like, okay, that's a Leviathan thing, that's a Behemoth
Yeah.
thing, because like food, it's like I need it for my body, but also like you gain pleasure from it too,
Yeah. It
you
could
know.
be given to your passions. Yeah.
Right, it could be
Yeah.
a passion as well. And so like it's
Hmm.
kind of like one of those things where maybe like fasting is one of those things where you kind of get both of them at once. And you can, and you, because like when you feel hungry, like
Yeah.
like you're just like, when I get hungry, I'm like, all right, time to get food. And then my whole, like, I could be working on whatever. I could have been working on a project or talking with someone, but all of a sudden my focus shifts, and like, all right, I gotta fulfill this desire, for all good
No,
reasons.
nothing
And
else will
and so
happen
like,
till I get tacos.
right, I need
Yeah.
tacos. And so
Everything
like,
else on pause.
and so by denying that, like it's a quick way to get access. We're like,
Yeah.
and to, it really is a practice, because what happens when, there's only so many opportunities to practice, or maybe there's zero opportunities to practice. Let's say, um, maybe you'll only have like one or two times in your life where, like, if you cheat, you'll really get like a lot of money or something. Like you'll
Mhm.
cheat at something and you can really get a big payoff. Maybe that doesn't come around much often, but it's the same mechanics, because you have this desire that comes up within you. You're like, oh, I could have that, just like I could eat my taco. You'd be like, I could have that if I do this. But practicing not eating the tacos sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
like prepares you for those other times when you're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not going to give into this. This is something that I have control over, or whatever. Or, or
Yeah.
yeah.
We got this joke in our signal group. I don't even know how it came up. I think Craig brought it up as an example one time about the kingdom of something, and he said Golden Corral, and we were like, out of all the things you picked, why that? So it's like, but I don't know, made me think of that when you mentioned tacos. I was like, Golden Corral would have been a better example to use. But yeah, when you're
Golden
talking about
Corral.
fasting, though, the way you're talking about it too, it's like, or even about taking that opportunity to get money, it's making me think about the angel again too. It's like your head is in the proper place.
With the
And with
rainbow
the
around you.
yeah, yeah, and you got your feet on both. You got them both
Mhm.
under your feet at that moment. You're putting them
Right.
putting them in their proper place or something. Uh, yeah, that's really interesting. Here's another question to you. This might take it a different direction, because in Revelation you get this dragon. Gosh, there was something I wanted to mention in Jonah too, but I'll bring this up first. Um, so there's the beast in the sea. Well, there's the beast that comes out of the sea, but then you also have Leviathan that's like in the sea. It says, I think in the Psalms, he plays in the sea, things like that.
Right.
But there's also this dragon in the waters above, because in Genesis, God separates the waters above and the waters below, and then you have
Mm.
this fiery flying dragon. Is that a type? Would you
I
consider
don't
that a type
know.
of Leviathan or no? I don't
I
know
don't know.
what to think of that.
The
Okay,
dragon of the sky. I mean, is
yeah,
that the,
because
see, I
if
don't
you're
know Revelation good enough. Is that the dragon that's in Revelation?
I'm not. I think there's a dragon above. I just know it scriptures at some points mentions a fiery flying dragon. Um, and I don't normally think of that as chaos, really. I almost think of that more of like a type of tyranny or something, if like fire's coming down from above. But then I was wondering about, God separates. When I think of space, I think of more of like waters, because it's this great, vast ocean, the ocean of stars, sort of. Um, so I didn't know if there was kind of like Leviathan in those waters as well. Um, but it
This
wouldn't
is
it wouldn't come across, I don't think, as like a fiery breathing one. In at least the imagery in my mind, I don't really get that impression of
right. So in Revelation 12, it says, and a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days.
Hmm.
And then
And then
Michael and
it's
his angels are fighting the dragon after that.
yeah, and then it says the dragon was cast out, the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, and he was cast to the earth. So
Okay,
it's like
so
he
then
was
he's cast
thrown.
to the earth, and then that beast rises out of the sea, and the beast rises out of the land after he's cast down.
It's interesting.
It is
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't know what to do with it yet. You got anything?
But that is the interesting that the sign appears in heaven of the red dragon in heaven. It's not Leviathan. It's some sort of you know it's I guess it's the devil or Lucifer.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Which
don't get the impression of I don't get as much of an impression of chaos from all this uh imagery we're reading here. But there
you
is
don't, but he's
the
like he's like throwing heaven into chaos, isn't he? He's like
that's
sweeping a
true.
third of the stars away,
That
but
is
he's
true.
thrown out. He's cast down.
Hmm. And
But
you do have the Leviathan is like a fire-breathing creature as well in Job. If I remember right, I think he breathes fire. Um, Although this just says red dragon. Mine says fiery red dragon. I guess that's why I got
oh,
the idea that
really?
it was I don't know why mine says that though. Maybe that's why I just was thinking it breathed fire. Or maybe just all the ideas I have of dragons anyway, like Game of Thrones. It's like
No, but it might be an enormous red dragon, a large red dragon, a great red dragon. Yeah, in the New King James it says a great fiery red dragon.
I don't know. Do you watch Game of Thrones? Do you watch that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But they
Okay.
have a big
Well,
dragon in that, huh?
yeah, yeah. And they breathe fire. So in that, I always, when the ones are like flying above, I guess I just always think of it as like this image of tyranny or something, because it's like the
Mm-hmm.
fire from the judgment's coming from heaven or something. So it's kind of represented that way. But it's interesting because it is always like this serpent, kind of like this twisting, chaotic creature, that's somehow now it's exalted to the heavens, and it's like you said, throwing the heavens into chaos. That's really
Yeah, but
interesting.
in the Greek they're translating it as red, fire colored, and the word is pyros, which sounds like it's
Ah, so it is
similar to
fiery.
the word fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, because I think there's like ideas, and I don't know enough about them, but ideas where they would see. I don't think it was Mars. I think there was something like if you saw a red comet in the sky, it was supposed to mean something in like ancient
Mm.
civilizations. I can't remember what it is exactly, but like this fiery streak through the heavens or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
So is
that's
the
interesting.
when after these beasts come out of the earth, um, let's see, and then the beast it says so and we have the behemoth, and then if there is a connection here with behemoth and the beast that kind of comes out of the earth, and it's kind of yeah, it's weird. The dragon like it speaks like a dragon. Gosh, that's even stranger. I don't know what's going on there.
Right.
And then the dragon gives it authority, and then we have like the mark of the beast, which I always kind of thought to be something like the exaltation of man, self-exaltation of man,
Mm-hmm.
not exaltation, self-exaltation, because the 666 thing, the number
Mm-hmm.
of man. Is that kind of what you think that as well? Or?
Yeah, I like what Peugeot talks about, where he talks about the six is the number of completeness. So, like on the sixth day, creation is complete, but it's without the remainder, the seventh day, the Sabbath.
Oh, okay.
And so basically the number 6 is like means complete, and then repeating it 3 times is like, when the angels say holy, 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 means it's the
Yeah.
holiest of all holy things. And so 666 is like complete, complete, complete. Like there's nothing left over.
Ah,
And it's complete in the way where you're like, we're going to, you know, what people talk about when they talk about like a one world government trying to take charge. Like that's the goal, is to like be able to manage everything.
yeah.
This is when, and this is what David gets in trouble for when he counts the men.
Oh
He does
yeah,
the
counting.
census where
Okay.
he's trying to figure out what he has, and like he, and it comes down to a lot of number stuff too, like counting things,
Yeah.
quantifying everything, and then putting your faith into that. So when David counts the men, he's like, all right, I could probably take these actions or whatever. Like he's putting his faith in the number of troops he has rather than in God.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's I think that's what it means, is that it's like the number of man, it's his desire to complete or to construct and control things. And then
Yeah.
666 is like taking that to its the maximum possible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's like this beast comes up, this order, this kingdom
Mm-hmm.
arises out of the ground, and man's built it, and then it says it reminds me of the Tower of Babel. It's like, look at this thing we built. It's ordered, it's structured. Now we worship
Mm-hmm.
it and
Yeah,
we
it's
receive.
exactly the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. So that's really interesting to make those connections. That makes sense to me. I hope that makes sense to other people. But I always
Who
think
knows?
sometimes these things are hard to explain. I'm like, people would be like, "How is the beast the Tower of Babel?" And they're like, "Well, it's because of the number of
Because it's
man. It's
so ordered.
yeah, the self-exaltation of man. Man is establishing his throne to the heavens, and so now we have this this city, this kingdom we've built. You could look like it moves, it breathes, it lives. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a behemoth, but it's also a kingdom. So it's a Tower of Babel, and man, not God, but man sits at the top and declares himself as God, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the mark of the beast coming there. And then after that, uh, which is kind of interesting, like all these things seem to be really, really intricately connected and like woven together. Because then you have the harlot, um,
Right.
who sits atop the. Is it the beast or is this off like a does she sit atop the Leviathan or the
I'll
Behemoth, or does it
I'll,
even matter at
I'll
that
read
point?
it.
All right.
All right, this is Revelation 17. Then
Okay.
one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came to me and said, come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of those of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Pornography. And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, so it's a scarlet beast. So but it has the same number of heads and horns as the dragon. So it seems like the dragon has like transmogrified into like this scarlet beast. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, so it's so weird. That's what I was like. Does it even matter at this point? Like, what's going on here anymore? It's so crazy.
the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written the name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus.
That's intense. Yeah. You got any thoughts?
Okay,
Any
wait,
thoughts
wait.
on?
Let me keep reading because this is interesting. when I
Yeah, get
saw
some.
her, when I saw her, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw and is not, is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated, and there are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are the 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. These are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. Let's just finish this.
And the angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are the peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And the 10 horns you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out this purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Oh my gosh. And then then the next thing is the fall of Babylon. So so Babylon is representative as the city, the civilization, which is also, I think they're alluding to Rome at this point too. The Roman Empire. But yeah, the beast ends up killing the prostitute and devouring her. and that's interesting because she's the city.
Yeah.
Okay, she's the city. She's riding on top of the beast.
On top of the city,
and then the beast eventually destroys the city.
Yeah.
So this is like the rise and fall of a civilization. And
all happening at once or something.
Yeah, like a civilization rides on a beast. And she like has her cup full of iniquities and the blasphemies. And she rides on the beast, and then the beast ends up killing her and devouring her. Oh my gosh.
I know, it all seems like compacted in this thing. I'm not like, and then he goes on like,
it's also reflective of what we just heard about the woman in the beginning, like the woman whose head was crowned with the 12 stars that was giving birth and that had to go into the wilderness.
Then this woman's also in the wilderness.
This woman is a prostitute. She's not like that woman who went off into the wilderness that gave birth was like the virgin.
Yeah. Yeah, but the weird thing is like, because when the mother of harlots, it's like she's the harlot of harlot, or she gives birth to harlotry.
Right.
And then it makes me think of Ezekiel though, because like the virgin in Ezekiel 16, the virgin becomes the whore. Like in Jerusalem says, I found you in the wilderness, I clothed you. And then he goes through and he like gives her all this stuff. And then he says, and then you went and prostituted yourselves. Woe to you, you harlot. And then you have the 2 harlot sisters. So like it's a pattern then. And it's like this pattern of God finding this virgin bride, and then she plays the harlot, and then this happens to her and her lovers devour her.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, then you have the fall of Babylon, and then you have the New Jerusalem. Like you have that whole thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's
going the cities or the civilizations are the women, are either the virgin or the harlot, and then there's this that weird turning, like the virgin becomes the harlot. Then in the end of Revelation, Babylon Babylon falls, goes into the earth, and New Jerusalem comes down from heaven. There's a transformation from Babylon to the New Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, there's just so much in here. Yeah, and like because you even have like in Ezekiel, I don't want to sound bleak because it ends well. Because I mean, they become they're still God's people, and it's in Ezekiel,
Mm-hmm.
like where is it, 16? Uh, it ends, and he says, "Nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish an everlasting covenant with you. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed when you receive your older and your younger sisters, for I will give them to you for daughters, but not because of my covenant with you. And I will establish my covenant with you. Then you shall know that I am the Lord, that you may remember and be ashamed, and never open your mouth any more because of your shame, when I provide you atonement for all you have done, says the Lord." So then he like establishes a new covenant with her and provides atonement whenever she receives her sisters. Kind of reminds me of Job receiving his friends or something too. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if there's a connection there. There's just yeah, it's just so much here. And it's weird because it's I picked up my old Bible because I was seeing if I had notes in here. And I put this one note. Um that's what I mean. It seems like when you start to get into even the cities in the Old Testament, they kind of stand as like symbols because these cities were built on certain orders and structures like they are now, like certain laws.
Mm-hmm.
So one city would look different than another. And so if you're looking at the spirit of them or the reasons, the purpose, these things came together and were built, they have different characteristics. And so if
Right.
you're just trying to see that, it's like then can start to interweave with one another or even be compacted with one another. So like here, because when it mentioned the harlot sitting on waters, it makes me think of uh like a siren or something like that, which makes me think of the city of Tyre, because Tyre is described as a siren. And so, gosh, there's just so many
That's
like
interesting.
little hints. It seems like yeah. So where is it? Isaiah. I think it's in Isaiah. He says he's talking about Tyre. He says oh yeah. So it's Isaiah 23, verse 15. Now it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre will be forgotten 70 years, according to the days of one king. At the end of 70 years, it will happen to Tyre, and as in the song of the harlot, take a harp, go about the city, you forgotten harlot, make sweet melody and sing many songs that you may be remembered. And then the note I had that I wrote in my old Bible, that Revelation one, is I wrote two verses, and the first one is Zechariah 9, and it said, "For Tyre built herself a tower, heaped up silver like dust, and gold like the mire of the streets. Behold, the Lord will cast her out, he will destroy her power in the sea, and she will be devoured by fire." And
Hmm.
then in James 5:3 was the other one I had, and I know that one says something about uh your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasure in the last days. Indeed, the wages of your laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. So in James, like the the, I mean, it doesn't say it's Tyre or anything, but it's talking about, I guess, being in this harlot, playing the harlot or the playing the harlot with the things of the earth, and that they're going to eat your flesh like fire. And
Hmm.
it's very similar to this. These will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, and eat her flesh and burn her with fire, is what it says in Revelation. So I'm like, there's
Yeah,
just like, it seems like
that's
all these things
interesting.
are kind of like, even with God finding the virgin, then she becomes the whore. Like all these things are kind of just being like, I don't know how John does this in Revelation. It's like they're being,
Synthesized.
yeah, yeah. Like all of a sudden she's on the beast in the sea, and then it's a land beast, and then it like
Yeah,
inverts and devours her, and then the heaven comes
yeah,
down, and it's like I don't know what's happening.
I know, right? Yeah,
It's intense.
it is intense. Well, and it like even just I was thinking about the waters that she's sitting on, and the waters are the people and the multitudes of the nation. It's like sort of the the chaotic waters that eventually God is going to bring dry land up out of and like build a people. It's like, I'm gonna bring you up. And it's like a creation event when God, and then like this idea of her sitting on top of the waters is like sort of this false creation, like trying to create yourself or trying to bring you up out of the chaos to something like that. Like that's what,
Yeah.
and not, and what do we make of the idea that the city comes down from heaven rather than it doesn't come up from the earth, it comes down from heaven. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's connected to the angel we were talking about earlier with his head being, what is it? Is his head in the heavens or is it just say its head's with clothed with a rainbow? Coming, oh, I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow on his head. Hmm,
Yeah.
gosh. Because the city that comes down in Revelation is, um, I think it says it's clothed with a rainbow, right? It's got a rainbow around it. I thought it said that somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And I think that mine says jasper stone, but I think that's actually translated as a, oh wait, Revelation 4. Here's the note I have. And he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance, and there was a rainbow around the throne, appearance like an emerald. I don't know. I thought they were connected, maybe. I thought this jasper stone around it was kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
um,
Okay.
rainbow.
In Revelation 21:9, it says, one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls full of the seven last plagues spoke to me, saying, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, its radiance like the most rare jewel, like jasper, clear as crystal.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we start with the mother, the virgin mother. We
Hmm.
we go to the prostitute, and now we're at the end with the bride.
Right. Yeah, the Virgin again. This is why I kept saying I was talking to Craig once, and I was like saying how Mary Magdalene and the Virgin Mary. I was like, they're all the same Mary. I was like, they're like, he's like, how
I
are they the
remember
same
that.
Mary? And I was like, because I was like, I don't know how to describe it. I was like, but the Virgin becomes the whore, then she becomes the Virgin again. And I was like, I think there's
No,
contention about Mary Magdalene being depicted as a whore as well. And I didn't know that was actually a contentious point. I guess I just thought
oh,
that
I
was,
didn't know either.
yeah, I think because I think people, I don't know, maybe took that and abused it in churches or something, but I didn't know that until after this. And then I just always thought that's kind of part of the story is she was not
Right.
necessarily a harlot, but
Was she the one that broke the
defiled.
perfume on his feet?
See, I think they're all the same Mary. Like if you ask me, I'm gonna say yes, but apparently to a lot of people she's not. But I'm like, they're all the same. It's like God's, because if you're talking about God being married to him, it's like his it's kind of like Sarah. It's like his wife is his sister and his daughter. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
it's like it's an eternal process. So it's like he's constantly, it's all
Right.
happening. I don't
It's
know.
like with
So I
the
don't know.
the image in the Orthodox churches where you have the birth of Christ, where Mary is holding Christ, and then with the what I forget what it's called now, but when Mary dies, they have that painted on the opposite wall, and then she is depicted as a little child being held in the arms of Christ as
Oh
he's
wow.
he's in heaven. So like you have this reverse images of her holding Christ and then him holding her in the Orthodox Church, and that's like a common thing, and they're on the opposite walls.
That is really cool. Man, that's gonna make me cry. It's that's so pretty. Because it makes me think of Ezekiel
The
again. It's like,
Dormition, that's what it's called.
yeah,
The
you have
Dormition
God.
of Mary.
Wow. Oh, I think I maybe have heard of that before.
Yeah, if
That's
you
really cool.
if you look it up, you'll see the icons of it, and Christ is sometimes depicted as holding a little baby Mary.
Yeah. Because I mean that's kind of the, to me, I think that's kind of the idea, right? It's like he comes to the virgin, and then like in Ezekiel, he finds the virgin and like where God finds Israel like a little baby, a little daughter, and she raises up. Then he comes Christ to like the virgin again,
Mhm.
marries her. But it's like there's this, yeah, the virgin grows up, becomes the harlot. It's just, gosh, it's just like the process of growing up. Like even Mary, because we think
Yep.
of Mary as like the virgin, but she's also the bride of Christ. She's also the church.
Yep.
But the church just goes through this process, gets defiled, gets beat, devoured, like just beaten down, and then dies. And then Christ still is there to hold her and find her.
Hmm.
What does it say in Ezekiel? Um, let's see, Son of Man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations and say, thus says the Lord God to Jerusalem, your birth and your nativity are from the land of Canaan. Your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. As for your nativity, on the day you were born, your navel cord was not cut. You were not washed with water to cleanse you. You were not rubbed with salt, nor wrapped in swaddling clothes. No eye pitied you to do any of these things for you, to have compassion on you. But you were thrown out into the open field when you yourself were loathed on the day you were born. And when I passed by you, I saw you struggling in your own blood. And I said to you, in your blood, live. Yes, I said to you, in your blood, live. Yeah. So I don't know. That's such a beautiful image you're talking about of Christ holding Mary after she dies. Yeah. And
That's
that's
it.
the thing with Mary Magdalene too, is like it says she had seven devils, so it was just like she was just, gosh, just a beat down. So I don't think
Right.
when I say she was a whore, like I'm not trying to like point figures and call her a whore. It's just
No,
like
no,
it's
it's the
more as
same
a
thing as
cat.
calling Nebuchadnezzar when he goes and becomes a beast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just uh yeah, it's being in defiled or just unclean or something. And yeah, it's
Hmm.
not quite the, yeah. Um,
Well, it's falling into the it's falling into the body, something like that.
mhm. Yeah,
You
yeah,
where
yeah.
you're no longer connected to heaven. You know that
Mhm.
I'm thinking of the image of the angel with one foot on land and one foot on the sea, and then his head in the heavens. It's like that's the picture, but the same picture is the beast rising out of the sea and the beast rising out of the land, but there's nothing in the heavens to connect them. So they'd come up as
Ah,
beasts rather than the feet of those that of that one that has his head in the heavens or something like that. Like it's the same picture,
yeah,
only but if you cut off the heavenly aspect, you just have these beasts.
yeah,
And then I don't know. It seems like those like I could see in my mind like it would be like two of the same icon, only one would have the head in the heavens, the other one wouldn't, and then this one would have the beast, and this one would just have the feet or something.
yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm checking with you. I can picture it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're definitely on something. Yeah, and because I think it is that rainbow in the cloud and being connected to that. And what is the rainbow is like the potentiality, like all the colors, all the potentiality, the
the
all the colors of the imagination or something, but it's all in
right.
the heavens. It's all directed up, like or
Mm-hmm.
something, and it's being connected to that
And
divine source.
it's in a ring around something central.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah. So what do you should I ask what you think about um the seventh also being the eighth and going? Mine says
I have
going to
no idea.
perdition, which is kind of interesting to me. Yours said destruction, but mine says perdition is the actual word. So I didn't know if there was some sort of connection with Judas is called the son of perdition. So I didn't know
Where
if there's
which
some play
verse
on
was
that.
that again? I have to
Gosh.
find it again.
It's let's see. Uh it's verse 8, Revelation 17:8.
It's so man. Well, first, like in verse 8, where it says, the dwellers on earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast because it was and is not and is to come. Isn't it said of God that he was and is to come? And then this says the beast was and is not and is to come. What is
Was
that? It's
was and
so
is to
weird.
come. Is that kind of him just playing on the fact that it's an eternal cosmic image or something?
Well, it's in the
Or
past, it's in the future, but it's not in the present. I don't know
wait,
what that
who
means.
was and is? Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, is not. You're
It
right.
was and is not and is to come. But God, they say, God was and is to
Dang,
come.
I wonder if this is him saying it's like kind of like your false self in a way. Like it can never actually exist in the present moment because it's I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting at here. I'm probably
I don't know. I don't ever remember reading that before until
was
like
and
we
is
read it just a
not
second.
is
But then okay, this calls for a mind with
that's
wisdom. The seven heads are the seven mountains that the woman is seated. There are also seven kings. Okay. Five of whom have fallen, one is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. In verse 11, as the beast that was and is not and is an eighth, but belongs to the seven. Oh, it is an eighth, meaning that it's an eighth head. So the seven heads are the seven mountains. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an eighth, but it belongs to the seven. It belongs to the seven headed beast, but it is its own thing. It belongs to the
it's
seven and it
interesting.
goes to destruction.
Goes to destruction. See, my word there is perdition, instead of destruction, but I
Perdition.
don't know that that's that significant because it's just words. But the reason it just makes me think of the Antichrist is called the son of perdition, Thessalonians or something. So it might be the same word. So I didn't know if there was a play on that. Let's see, Second
Yeah, it's the
Thessalonians.
same word. It's this apolia.
Yeah,
Apolia? Something. I don't know how to
let
pronounce it.
no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or all that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Um, and then that I think Judas is also called the son of perdition, which is I don't know
Oh,
why if
interesting.
there's something going on there, but that's interesting to me. I don't know if there's something happening there where like he sits as God, showing himself that he is God. Um, but he is not like he never actually is. So I wonder if that's kind of what he's getting at. Like where I was saying, like I wonder if it's kind of always your false self. So it's like he's showing himself that he is, but he
Uh-huh.
always is not. I don't like he can never be. He can never actually be or exist in that
Right.
state. I
It's
don't
like
know.
he exists like in this other, the beast that was and is not and is.
Yeah, because like if I think I don't know about the was, but if I think of like something
It
in the
is and
future. Like I
is.
could imagine myself as God or imagine myself as king, but it's like if I actually reach for that, I don't know that I could ever actually manifest that or make it incarnate. Like it would always be an is not or something. It never could actually fully it would always be a delusion. Does that make sense? It always is not
Mm-hmm.
because it's always a delusion or something like that. I don't know if that's what he means by that. It's such a weird thing to say, but I don't know. I don't know if that's the Judas thing either, though. Do you have any thoughts on that? There's a
No, but I want to look up what it says about Judas, like after he betrays Christ.
son of
Um,
perdition. I think it's Jesus that calls him the son of perdition. It's probably in the Gospel of John too. I'll just Google it. That'll be faster.
okay, then Satan entered into Judas Iscariot, who was the number of the 12, was of the
John.
number of the 12. And he went away and conferred with the chief priest and officer how he might betray him to them. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. So he consented and sought an opportunity to betray him in the absence of a crowd. Then there's Passover, the Lord's Supper. Um, Jesus foretells Peter's denial, scriptures fulfilled, then the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. Okay. While he was still speaking, there came a crowd, and the man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? And when those who were around him saw what would follow, they said, Lord, shall we strike with a sword? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, no more of this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who were come out against him, have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness.
John 17:12, he also says, while I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those who you gave me I've kept, and none of them is lost except the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. So that was the verse where it's saying he's the son of perdition.
Where I'm trying to see where
That was John 17:12, but I like the passage you read too. And I think
where did
there's a
Judas
passage. Where did he what?
where did Judas die? Matthew 27. Let me find that real fast.
Then there's a weird reference in Acts as well, where he dies, like hangs himself or something and bursts open in a field.
Oh, is that in the first part of Acts?
There's that part that, yeah, there's that one because there's almost, it sounds like two conflicting accounts or something. Because
Okay,
there's
so let me
one in the gospel, I think he throws the money down and goes and hangs himself in a field. And then in Acts, it says he falls and bursts open or something like that. I
Okay, so
think it's
let me
Acts
read
2.
Matthew 27.
Okay.
Then when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he changed his mind and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. They said, what is that to us? See to it yourself. And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed and went and hanged himself. But the chief priest, taking the pieces of silver, said, it is not lawful to put them in the treasury since it's blood money. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field as a burying place for strangers. Therefore, the field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, and they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him whom a price had been set by some of the sons of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field as the Lord directed me.
And this says, this is the Acts. Now this man purchased a field with the wages of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and all his entrails gushed out. And it became known to all those dwelling in Jerusalem. So that field is called in their own language, Akol Dalma, that is the field of blood.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That, like, they're saying that Judas fell headlong in the field that the people bought.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard people try to tie these together, saying like he hung himself and then his body, the rope eventually broke where he's burst
Right.
open. And I don't know that it really matters that much. I think it's just maybe
I don't
kind
think
of,
so.
like Peugeot would say, it's just kind of the imagery of both of them. As you have one cursed as a man hanging on a tree, which I don't know. It's really interesting. You know, when you said the blood money, for some reason it made me think of the harlot again, who's like drunk on the blood of the martyrs. And it made me, for some reason, I got this like picture in my head of this is why I really like the Hindu religion sometimes, because they just have, it's so colorful, and their gods, and you get like this, there's one of their gods, and it's like this crazy, crazy lady who's just like, it reminds me of the harlot or something. She's just like drunk, I think, on blood and like just terrifying, like just destroying people all the time.
Is it
But it made
Shiva?
me think of just like this horror with like, because she's just got her payment. She got the money of silver, and so you have this blood money like just like slipping through her fingers, and she's just drunk on. She's just that instead of drinking wine, she's just drinking blood, and celebrating on the blood of the martyrs. And it's kind of like in that moment, at least, that's what Judas had just done, and he realized he had done it or something, and yeah, I don't know, and he realized that's kind of like who he had become, or yeah, which I'm one of those people that thinks Judas will ultimately be redeemed, but
You think that what?
that Judas would be redeemed.
Oh yeah, me too.
But I don't know that So, but I don't know that that image, I guess I say would be redeemed of the one that's the, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like the cosmic image of the heart, unless it's transformed. If it's transformed and back
Yeah.
into the Virgin,
Well,
then,
yeah, it
but
all has to
yeah.
have some sort of transformation.
Hmm.
He burst open in the middle and all his bowels gushed out. It reminds me of like the, I don't know if this is right, but like the wineskins, like if you put new wine into old wineskins, they burst.
Whoa,
And if
that's
she's,
really
and
good.
when you were talking about being drunk on the blood of the saints or whatever, and like him falling over and bursting.
You just blew my mind. There's definitely something there. I don't know what to do with it though. That's really good.
This is
Yeah,
just
because
free
there's
association time with Jess and Jason.
well, there's definitely a connection with blood and wine, and to
Hmm.
pour the old wine into like these wineskins. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, and the wine is spilled. The blood wineskin bursts open and the wine is spilled. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's intense. Wow.
Well, maybe this is a good place to start wrapping it up.
Yeah, one thing I could throw out here,
Hmm.
you can sit with and we can maybe talk about it when you come back. I brought it. Have you spoken to Jed before, right? Have you,
Yeah.
or do you know? Okay, yeah. I mentioned it to him too, because I didn't know if he might have thoughts. Maybe the three of us could get together or something. But I was wondering if there's a connection between the son of perdition and Judas and Antichrist or whatever, and Absalom. Um, because there's the way Absalom dies is he ends up
Hmm.
hanging in a tree as well, and they like throw a heap of stones. They throw him in a pit and throw stones on him, kind of like in Revelation.
Hmm.
I think the devil's cast into a pit and they roll a big
Hmm.
stone over him. So I didn't know if there was I don't know, just something to
I don't
chew
know.
on. And
That's
we can
interesting.
maybe.
I'm going through first and second Samuel with a bunch of guys, so
Oh,
I'll
nice.
definitely keep that in mind as I get through to that part.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to hear what you think about it because for some reason, I've always kind of felt they're somehow connected. Because even what is it like the Antichrist, I think is and Daniel he says he's going to try to win the people with flattery, and Absalom kind of does the same thing. And then there just seems to be a lot of similarities. And then I don't
Right.
know. It's a very compelling story, and the way David still weeps over him.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
and he
know.
just leaves. He doesn't try to fight or he just
Oh
is like, all
yeah.
right, I'm leaving.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot we could probably dig out of that maybe. Yeah, because he leaves and he goes to the Mount of Olives, like just like
Hmm.
Christ, just like Jesus.
Well, and he
Yeah.
does that with Saul too. Saul's trying to kill him, and he just takes off and he goes to find Samuel first
Oh
time.
wow.
Then the next time he
Yeah.
goes and he leaves the country totally.
Yeah.
But
Cool. Well, we'll get back in it, I guess. Yeah. There's a lot to think about, man. Now you,
I know this is
I don't
kind of
know.
cool though. Like
Yeah, this is
talking
fun.
with because like things start coming together, and I don't know if it
Yeah.
it seems like it makes sense, but I don't know how. I'll be interested if anybody comments on the video and has
It
anything to
does.
say.
It does. Like, I feel like it's this weird place where I always try to get to where, like, even every time I talk to Luke Thompson, it just feels like he's almost naturally there, where, like, the duality there's not as much of a duality. So things, yeah, like, are synthesized easier, like you're
Right.
talking about. Like, it seems like that's what's happening here. And there's a part of my mind that wants to keep kind of dicing it up. And I'm like, just, I don't know. But like you're saying, it's all kind
Well,
of
part of
flowing
it is like what
together.
you were talking about, like where you can kind of categorize it, but then Revelation goes and then like flips all the categories on top of each other, and then flips them again, and then and then so
Yeah,
you
that's
can
true.
never quite get your bearings.
Yeah, they're like, it's always is not. It never
Wait,
is.
I thought this was supposed to be, but now it's a,
Yeah, yeah,
but that's like the transformative aspect of what God's always doing, I think. So,
that's true.
I don't
Well,
know.
thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah,
This has been fascinating. This has been so much fun.
it's
I love
it's
this.
it's super fun. I'll post this on my channel and I'll send you the file as well.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Cool.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Well, see you later, Jason.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.